Good evening, good afternoon, or whatever place of the world you are. And we're very glad to have today Professor Shun Wang, that he's a tenured professor at KDI, School of Public Policy and Management in Korea. He obtained his PhD in economics in the University of British Columbia and MA in economics and BA in business administration in Beijing University. And his research lies mainly in subjective well-being, economic development, and Chinese economy. And this research agenda has led to new insights in the relationship between socioeconomic environment and happiness. So his papers were published in many economics and interdisciplinary journals, while he's associate editor and founding member of the World Happiness Report. He's also a member of the Global Happiness Council and chairs the Wellbeing Measurement Committee. And he has been a consultant for the Asian Development Bank and the World Bank as well. And we're very glad to have his talk, about 30, 40 minutes, and then we're going to have a Q&A session. So, Professor Wang, your floor first.
And thank you very much, Dean Hui. It's my great honor to be invited to give a lecture on my recent research. This research about, the air pollution and the parental life satisfaction in Korea. As just, Stefanos introduced, one main research interest of mine is about well-being, or in people often happiness. So I've done a lot of studies on this topic. Well, for this one, we look at the impact of the air pollution in Korea on the parental life satisfaction, and we are trying to estimate the impact. And we show the gender imbalance in terms of the impact of the air pollution on the parental life satisfaction. Well, this is a joint paper between me and my two former students. This paper is also on the revision requested by a journal, and I think it will be accepted very soon because he's already gone through the second round of a review. Well, there are 5 parts of my presentation, and the first part, introduction to the background of the research, and the second we'll discuss the data and our identification strategy, and the third part report the main results, and then I show you the potential channels of the impact, and lastly we draw the conclusions and policy implications. Well, air pollution is not new, and I think a lot of people have experienced such kind of air pollution, particularly in the developing countries, for example, in China or India and even Mongolia. I'm sure about the case of Central Asia, but I believe that in many developing countries, air pollution is a very serious issue. It's been an urgent challenge for the policy and also a very big threat to people's health. And researchers are thus trying to estimate the socioeconomic consequences of the air pollution, including the impact on health, because we know this kind of air pollution can be inhaled into our lungs. So it's very intuitive to think that this kind of pollution may have an impact on our race system. Well, not just have impact on health. Researchers also show that the air pollution have impact on people's, labor market performance, and also students, even, cognitive performance. In addition to those kind of studies, in recent years, some economists also trying to estimate impact of pollution on people's subjective well-being. Well, the subjective well-being can be served as a, subject indicator of our well-being. Well, later I'm going to introduce you more details about the concept of subjective well-being. So researchers can use this kind of studies, empirical studies, to estimate the pollution-induced loss in monetary terms. It's like we can, give a price, shadow price to the air pollution based on this method. Well, such estimates is available, in many regions worldwide, including some specific country blocks, for example, China, or Korea, or Indonesia, Also, some estimates are based on some larger blocks, such as the continent Europe or other regions. Well, the studies show that this kind of pollution-induced loss of subjective well-being can vary by the household characteristics, such as income, education, and people's, work type. Well, this is about the background of the research on air pollution. Well, in terms of the study on subjective well-being, before I move talk about the details, I'd like to introduce what's going on in the studies of subjective well-being. If I use the word happiness, probably it's like more people know about it. Subjective well-being nowadays is a very, very important topic in the economics, but not just in economics, but also in policy studies and in psychology and also sociology. And in economics, this has been a very important topic since Easterling's research in 1974. At the time, Richard Easterling trying to link the economic growth with subjective well-being to see that whether our economic growth does promote the growth of happiness. And he found that, okay, a higher income country tend to have a higher level of happiness. However, the growth of the economy seems not to be correlated with the growth of happiness. Well, this is so-called, Easterling paradox, very famous paradox. Well, since then, more and more people, since the late 1990s, a lot of more and more researchers, economists have started to, conduct studies on this topic. Subjective well-being actually have two main components. The first one is called emotion. It includes both positive and negative emotion, or sometimes it's called affect, or positive affect and negative affect. It's generally referred to a kind of short-term, fluctuations in our subjective well-being. Well, another component is called cognitive evaluations of our lives. It's like, how do you evaluate our life in general? The second one is generally more stable and more correlated with our life circumstances. Well, the emotional measures are often called hedonic happiness or experience happiness. There have been studied a lot by psychologists. Well, economic people care more about life satisfaction, the cognitive aspect of our subjective well-being, because it's more related with our policy and socioeconomic environment. Well, life satisfaction is just one of the three commonly used life evaluation measures of the subjective well-being. The other two are general happiness and also the control ladder. If you heard, the ranking of happiness, global happiness rankings, we did that in a World Happiness Report. And in that report, we use a control ladder to give a ranking of the countries in terms of their. The reason is that, the Gallup World Poll we use for ranking only have the, the control ladder data. Well, recent studies have shown that, this kind of life satisfaction, happiness, and control ladder are very highly correlated. So they basically tell a very consistent story. Well, in this paper, we mainly use the life satisfaction given the availability of the data. Well, why we care about, the parental life satisfaction? Because we think the children are vulnerable to air pollution. We know that from the literature. So we conjecture that the air pollution will induce a partial loss of the parental subjective well-being if the family have some young children. Well, we know that parents care about their children and they have the caregiving burden. If their children get sick, they need to take their children to a hospital, to their clinics, and they may also need to stay to take care of their baby. Well, so given this parental altruism and the caregiving burden, we conjecture that the air pollution will have an impact on the parental life satisfaction. Well, this kind of specific channel has not been investigated in the literature, to our knowledge. This paper fills a gap by exploring how this impact of the pollution on parental life satisfaction may vary by the age of the children and also the gender or the parents. It's like whether husband and wife will suffer the same loss from the air pollution. Well, the main data set used for this study is Korean labor income panel studies. It's panel data and conducted since 1998. It is covers the household individuals living mainly in the urban areas. And so this survey is mainly used to track the household and also their economic and social activities. Well, in our research, we have more than 13,000 individuals, and the data between 2010 and 2016. Well, the main outcome variable is life satisfaction, which is a cognitive aspect of the subpopulation. The survey question is like, how satisfied are you with your life in general? The responses range from 1 to 5. 5 means very satisfied and 1 means very dissatisfied. Well, this survey question has been widely used in many surveys, for example, in the World Value Surveys, in the European Social Surveys, and other social surveys. So this is a very standard and typical survey for social well-being. So the measure of pollution is the district level concentration of the PM10. We know that PM10 contains those macroscopic solids or liquids that can be inhaled into our lungs. Well, this will also enter our bloodstream. Therefore, it may have a serious health effect, particularly for the young and the old. This data was obtained from Air Korea of the Korea Environment Corporation. Well, in our empirical studies, the unit of measurement is scaled up to 10 milligram per cubic meters. Actually, we can use 1 milligram, but just to make the coefficient larger, so we just scale up by 10. Well, this is the distribution of the PM10 during the research period. We can see that the average PM10 is around 50 milligram per cubic meters. Well, according to WHO, the guideline or the safe line for this PM10 is around 20. So that means in most days in Korea, the pollution is higher than the WHO guideline. So that means Koreans are not living in a clean air. So the air pollution has been a very important problems in the country. Well, I can feel it because I stayed there for many years. Particularly in the winter days, we can see the smog, from day to day. Well, this is a summary stat of the main variables. The main outcome variable is the overall life satisfaction. You can see that on the 1 to 5 point of scale, the average is about 3.4. And on average is around 40. So this is the average value. Well, in terms of our methodology, we have adopted a very standard instrumental variables approach. Well, it's like to deal with the endogeneity of the air pollution, the measures of the air pollution, we use the instrumental variables to deal with to correct the bias, polluting bias. Well, in this equation, you can see that the outcome variable is Y, which is the life satisfaction of the respondents living in respondent I living in district B at time T. And the most important, the key explanatory variable is the PM10 in the district at the time. And also we control for the number of kids in the household and the interaction term between the PM10 and the number of kids in the household. So the beta 3 interaction term, the coefficient of the interaction term is our the variable of is a coefficient of interest. It's like we are trying to explore whether the air pollution will have an impact on the parental life satisfaction when there are kids at home. And we control for a lot of household and district characteristics. And we also control for individual and time fixed effect. So the theta contains individual fixed effect and also, year fixed effect. Well, we know that, for this ORS regression, there will be a problem with the homogeneity because the PM10 can be measured not very accurately because it's a district level average. And so each person may have experienced slightly different pollution levels from the average original 10. And also there may be some omitted variable bias. For example, the regional social and economic activities are likely to be correlated with the PM10 and also people's life satisfaction. For example, the economic development level or industrial concentration there, the traffic jams, those factors can be correlated with PM10 and also be correlated with people's life satisfaction. So therefore, this kind of ORS regression is likely to face the standard endogeneity problem. So therefore, we are trying to deal with this endogeneity based on the individual, the fixed effect model. We control for individual fixed effect. It's like that means we can also control for the regional fixed effect. In addition to that, we are also using instruments which are the wind directions. The wind directions. It's like from the literature and also our, the common sense that the air pollution can just move across country. And the literature such as John Koo in 2019 showed that there could be transboundary air pollution from China to Korea. And we see those kind of news, almost every year, many such kind of news. Blaming China for transboundary air pollution. Well, this is also supported by the literature. So we are using this kind of fact that there could be potential transboundary air pollution from China. Therefore, if there are west winds and also north wind, it's likely to have transboundary air pollution from China to Korea. So that we use the wind direction as the potential instruments for the air pollution in Korea. Well, in addition to that, we also use the interaction term between wind direction and the distance to China's border as additional instruments, because when a region Korea is more distant away from China, the impact is likely to be smaller. Therefore, we use both wind directions and the interaction term between wind directions and distance to China as the instruments. So this is our main instrumental variable approach. Well, we know that the instruments are likely to be correlated with the air pollution in Korea, and the instruments are valid because it also meets the exclusion restriction. The wind direction first is not as easily perceptible as other weather indicators, for example, the temperature or raining or other weather indicators, because they are very, very hard to be detected, or people generally do not care about it. Well, but still people may have concerns about the seasonal variation of the wind direction. Therefore, we control for the quarter dummies and also the province year fixed effect to deal with the potential seasonal pattern of the wind directions. So after controlling all those potential co-founders, and we use the wind direction as instruments for our PM10. But before presenting the main, let me show you the raw correlation between PM10 and overall life satisfaction of the parents, of people. The left panel shows the raw correlation between PM10 and life satisfaction for those people without children. We see slightly positive correlation there. So this may show that the air pollution is likely to correlate with the social and economic activities there. So, we have, even it have a negative impact, but it also may have a positive correlation. But for the family with at least one child less or equal to 3 years old, the correlation become negative. So this is a raw correlation without controlling for the confounders. Well, this table shows our main result, which is a second stage result of our 2C least square regressions. There are 9 columns there. The first 3 columns is about the regressions for parents with less than 1-year-old children. It's like we have an interaction term between PM10 and the children, number of children or equal to 1-year-old. It's like we first look at the very young children, the infant. And columns 4 to 6, in columns 4 to 6, we extend age to 2 years old. And then in the last 3 columns, we extend the children's age to 3 years old. So basically they have very similar structure, but just have a different interaction term. Well, the column 1 shows the regression for both parents, or it's like for both males and females. Column 2 for males and column 3 for females. Well, the interaction term shows that the coefficient is minus 0.061, and which is significant at 5% for 5% significance level. Well, in column 2, we show that this is not significant for males. But in column 3, we show that it's very significant, and also the coefficient is much larger for females. That means mothers were affected by erosion, but fathers are not. Well, in columns 4 to 9, we see the same pattern. It's like we see a very big negative impact for mothers, but no impact for fathers. Well, these are just the coefficient. If we want actual impact, we can convert it to standard deviations. So column 2 and 3 shows that for a 10 milligram per cubic meters increase in pollution, mother's life satisfaction decreased by 0.19 standard deviation, while father's life satisfaction only decreased by 0.005 standard deviation. So it's a very, very big difference. Our impact on mothers is like mild, very big, but also not very small. So that means our estimates shows that there is a statistically and economically significant impact of the air pollution on the life satisfaction of mothers, but not for fathers. Well, this study shows the gender inequality in the parenting practice in Korea. Well, this is consistent with the fact that mothers will just are the main caregivers in Korea, because we know Korea still inherited those traditional Confucius, and mothers generally are the main caregivers. So generally, when they have, 2 children or more children, mothers tend to quit their job and stay at home and just to take care of their babies. Well, following the literature, we also calculate the monetary value of the air quality, considering the trade-off between household income and the air quality. It's like basically we are calculating the compensation differentials between the air pollution and income, because we know the coefficient of log income, and we also know the coefficient of the air pollution. Given our calculation, we show that for a 1 milligram per cubic meters reduction in PM10 is associated with the 4.3% of the annual house. It's like people are willing to sacrifice 4.3% of the income to be exchanged for a 1 milligram, per cubic meter reduction in air pollution. Well, this is quite a big number actually. That means people do suffer a lot from the air pollution. Well, our estimates is larger than the literature, is larger than the baseline result in 2012 estimates. Well, he used the data from the United States and found that the trade-off is like 2.1% of the annual income. Well, our estimate is also larger than the estimate from China, which is 2.3%. Well, if we convert this value to US dollar, it implies that for 1 milligram reduction in 10, which is evaluated at annual or average annual income, it is about $1,186. So it's a lot of money. Well, this monetary value is slightly larger than the US case, which is 891 US dollar, as reported in Levins in 2012, but it's much larger than the China case, which is only a few hundred Chinese yuan, which may be because of the difference of the income level. And also the air pollution in Korea is more severe than in the United States. Well, this is the first stage of our estimate. We can see that the 4 instruments are showing the correct signs. So the north wind and the west wind both have a positive coefficient. That means both winds contribute to a higher air pollution level in Korea. However, the interaction term between north wind and distance from China is negative. That means when the region is far more distant away from China, the impact of the transboundary air pollution tend to be smaller. And we also report the F statistics of the excluded instruments. They are generally bigger than 70, so we have no problem, the weak instrument problem. And we also conduct over-identification tests, ensuring that the p-value are generally bigger than 0.1, so we pass that test. This figure shows the trend. That means we further extend the children's age to up to 10 years old, because in our main result, we only report up to 3 years old. We can see that after 6 years old, generally the impact will disappear because the 95% confidence intervals will cover span over the 0. So that means for the young children, there is an impact, but for the older children, the impact disappears. And we can see that there seems to be a decreasing trend of the coefficient of our estimates. Well, these are our main results. Next, we conduct a few robustness checks to support our main result. First, we restrict our sample to the non-movers, and so that we can cluster our standard errors by district. And next, we use the full sample but omit the individual fixed effect, so that we can cluster standard errors by district. To because people may have concerns that the error term may be correlated within certain regions. So our robustness checks give us very similar results to the main result. I will not go into details. And next, we conduct a placebo test, because people may concern that some unobserved determinants of life satisfaction among individuals with children might differ from those without children. It's like the people who have children and the people who have no children may be substantially different. Therefore, we conduct a placebo test. Basically, we just for each woman who have the children at age J in period T, we just assign pseudo children in the period 2 years ago, 2 years before that, when that woman does not have any children yet. It's like they have a future children. And so we run regressions for the people who don't have children yet, but we assign their future number of children to them. So by doing this, we can see that when those women do not have children yet, there is no significant impact. But this is a very standard placebo test. That means when they don't have children, you should not observe the impact. Well, as you can see from this table, we don't observe the significant impact for women. Well, next we are trying to explore the potential channels of the impact. Well, the first case is like the actual illness of the children could be one result of the air pollution. Therefore, it have impact on parental life satisfaction. Well, next could be the psychological burden due to the concerns about the potential health risk of air pollution. Even there is no actual impact, because parents will have concerns about the potential impact. Therefore, they are less likely to go outdoors, and they're more likely to keep their children at home, and they are cut from their social interactions with their friends, and increased burden of the caregiving at home. So these are the psychological burden and the reduction in their social interactions. Well, why we care about this? Because the research in the subject well-being show that the social interactions matters for people's happiness. So we also have observed the phenomena that in Korea, mothers of the younger children often bond with each other to provide mutual support in child rearing. Well, when I live in Korea, particularly in Seoul, I often see a few mothers with children sit together and have a drink, or just to have, to go to eat pizza or have a dinner together. So they have the mutual support. Well, when they worry about their children's health, when there is air pollution, they are less likely to meet their friends. So therefore, we run regression of air pollution on the mother's satisfaction with social relations. Well, we do this for both parents, both fathers and mothers. And very similar to our main regression, we show that the air pollution have a strong impact on mother's social satisfaction with social relations, but not for fathers. We also see a similar pattern, a diminishing impact by age. It's like when children become older, and impact on people's satisfaction with their social relations becomes smaller. And we also run regressions of air pollution on other domain satisfaction. For example, their satisfaction with leisure, housing environment, family relations, and relations with relatives. While we do have some weak evidence that when the mothers, this is for mothers only, mothers are less likely to have satisfaction with housing environment and family relations when there is air pollution and young children at home. So this is a subjective evidence that mothers are affected by the air pollution because of their caregiving burdens on their children. Well, this is a very brief introduction to the main result. Now it's a conclusion. Well, we show that the impact of air pollution on the life satisfaction of mothers while using the wind directions and its interaction with distance from Chinese border as instruments. Well, our results do show that air pollution matters a lot for mothers with young children. And we show that the monetary value, the monetary loss of the air pollution is very big. And I think our main contribution is that it's not just the air pollution impact is big, but also that there is a gender imbalance. Well, this has been largely ignored in the literature. And we also have some suggestive evidence about the potential channel that mother's social relations and the perceived family environment could be affected by the air pollution. And this could be the potential channels of the impact on parental satisfaction, life satisfaction. Well, this kind of gender and children specific effects of air pollution weren't special attention since they tend to be ignored in academic and also policy discussions. I think that means the dealing with the air pollution not matter for the general social welfare, but also, help to promote the gender imbalance, particularly in the countries where women have a lot of burdens of caregiving. All right, so this is a very brief introduction to my to this paper. Thank you very much. Question, please.
Great. Thank you very much for being on time and for very thorough and explanatory presentation. So as Tamira mentioned, we have about 10-15 minutes with Q&As. I see raised hands. I'm gonna go for the first one. Just please, let's make it a bit quick and not that like multi-length questions, with sub questions afterwards. Yeah. Simeon,
yes,
can you go ahead?
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
I was just curious. Thank you for the presentation, by the way. It seems interesting. I just couldn't follow how you computed this willingness to pay for the
Well, basically, as I said, it's like we calculate compensation differentials. We look at the relative size of the coefficient of erosion, also the coefficient of the income. I didn't present in the slide, but it's shown in the paper. It's like we had the difference between the coefficients, and we can calculate the relative size. Yeah, here is the detail. So first we can see that for 1 milligram increase in air pollution, we can calculate a decrease in the life satisfaction. And then we can look at the coefficient of log income for 1% increase. Then we compare the two coefficients. This is how people generally calculate the relative size of the impact.
Okay, just to clarify, are you comparing the life satisfaction to the income there then, or
the coefficient of air with the coefficient of log income?
So you have another model with income, or
Yeah,
what is your dependent variable?
No, it's in the same model. So for example, in this model, and outcome is life satisfaction, right? And we control for PM10, interaction with children, and many other many other control variables, including log income. I reported here. So we have the income controlled in the same regression.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Therefore,
just a quick follow-up if possible. Do you know how this will be related to contingent valuation methods of willingness to pay?
Well, that I know that one, but this is a different method. For this one, it's like we have the both coefficient, right? We have coefficient of less air pollution, and we have the coefficient of it's like we are calculating the shadow price of the air pollution, but by comparing the difference in the coefficient, it's also called a compensational differentials. Well, for the continuing valuation, that's a kind of different method, but they are always often used to evaluate the monetary value of the those kind of non-market goods. This one is different. Is continuing value one, yeah.
So how would they compare? I'm just curious. Are they going to do about the same?
Just a minute, because never the story of these questions. Sorry, okay. Simeon. Just because we have like some others like. So Cliff, if you'd like to go through.
Yes, hello. Thank you, Shun, for your presentation. My question, I think it's not a complex question. It relates to your dependent variable of subjective well-being, and your measure was a cognitive measure of subjective well-being, correct? Based on the question in the national survey. And I'm just wondering, was there also a question that would measure affective well-being, and if so, was there a choice made between the two measures, and why?
Well, unfortunately, they don't have the measure on affect. That's why we have to rely on this one. Well, yeah, in the literature, there are some studies like in China or in other countries, they have both, or they have only emotions. But in this case, in our case, we don't have this one. There is no other one. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Professor Ha, I think you raised the hand.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Okay, Professor Shun, good to see you, and thanks for your valuable presentation and very interesting subject. I have two comments and questions. I think the first one is could you show me your competence interval by age?
You mean this one? No, this one.
The competence interval, the test. Usually you show the age less than 3, significant, but around the age groups bigger than 4, 5, 6 is insignificant, right? But interval is a little bit opposite our so the concept, because age 1 and 2 is usually stay at home. When they age 3, 4, 5, 6, they are more actively want to go outside, playground, students, so if this result is a little bit opposite, then make it more convincible. That's my first comment. And then second one is when we see this, can you see the table of the interaction terms? Yeah, and another one is
this one.
Yeah, usually the age one is not the interaction term. Usually the parent, mothers, fathers have only number of children in age group 1, age group 2, age group 3 are getting increased. That's also very interesting things. It's not decreased because usually, yeah, if you have a kids, baby is happy, but usually mother complain, you know, the caregiving, the 1 and 2 years they sleep. I think that they are really unsatisfied, even if they're happy with the children. So it's a little bit opposite result to usually the data showing. And then the interaction term is okay, so it's good showing. Another one is maybe the reason is the happiness is not only number of kids and what is air pollution. There are many other factors so affected, right? In your model, I think there's not control enough. Like the parents have a householding, you know, they have their own home, or the income level. There's more affected when the parents and the mother's happiness, I think. Also, the pollution and the kids also affected, but usually we're thinking more important fact that they existed. So that's my comment. And my question is, you use the instrument variable, wind direction, and the distance from China. I think so. My question is, without this instrument variable, the output is similar or not? That's my question. And then, did you test this instrument variable is available, valid? Second one is the falsification test. I have just you said non-children, and you assign randomly number of children, right?
No, not random. It's like their future number of children.
Yeah, future number of children is the falsified. So could you explain more? So how did you give all the people's non have a children and then the children's giving, or how do you do it, the falsification test? More explanation. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. A lot of very interesting questions. Let me just briefly answer them one by one. So the first one is about the potential trend, right? So yeah, you said that the younger children are more likely to stay at home, but that's one factor. But also the younger children are more likely to be sick and they're more vulnerable because they're young. And I have my own experience of raising my kids, right? So when they are very young, 1 or 2 years old, although they are not as active as older who are out home, but they are still very vulnerable to those all kinds of impact, like to be sick. So they are less likely to be going outside. However, they are more vulnerable. So we don't know theoretically, whether coefficient will be larger or smaller, I think. But what we found here is like they're slightly when children become smaller when children are older. So that's what data tell us. I don't know. Theoretically there could be both signs, but empirically we see this. And second one is about the coefficient of the children is positive. But as we know that we have an interaction term there, right? So when you look at the coefficient of children, you should not just look at the children itself. You should also look at the interaction. It's like PM10 interact with the children, the number of children. You want to see the overall impact of the children to combine the two with average PM10. PM, let's say 40, and you use 40 times minus 0.061, got around minus 2.04. Well, combined with the number of children, you got almost 0. So that means average the coefficient of the as shown by many other studies, actually. Well, the third question is about the controls. I didn't report them in this table because of the limited space, but if you read the notes there, including like age squared, marriage status, number of children, age below 18, we improve for employment status, education level, household income, household ownership, car ownership, and a lot of other variables, and also regional dummies and quarter and year fixed. We control for a lot of variables there, actually. Well, another one about the comparison of variable approach and ORS, right? If my memory is correct.
Yeah.
Well,
without the ID, it's the original one.
Well, if we run that,
have a similar result showing or not?
No, it's to 0. We didn't see anything. But as we explained in the very beginning, it's very likely by the endogeneity because the air pollution is likely to be correlated with the social and economic activities there. It's like more economically developed region, they can have also have a higher air pollution. So we can't trust the original simple ORS regression. That's why we have to rely on these kind of 2C least square results. And the last one is a test. Okay, here is how we did it. Because people have concerns that the families, the couples with children and couples without children will be substantially different, right, in terms of their life satisfaction. Therefore, we just move back a few periods before the survey period when they haven't yet. They don't have children yet, but we use their future number of children as an interaction term. It's like the parents don't have children for this year, but they will have children, and we know that from the data. But we use a future number of children, bring them back so that we run a regression now. Then we can see that when there is no children yet, those future parents should not be affected by air pollution. Well, this is just exactly what we have shown.
Did you assign the all none who doesn't have any children, assign the future children, all non-child parents?
No, for non-child parents, they always have children. But for the people who will have children in the future, we assign their future children.
I mean, I know that some people doesn't have, and some people have families. I mean, the kids.
For example, our data, spans over 2010 to 2016, right? And if they have children in 2016, and they don't have children in 2014, and we know that from the data because. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Just respond to what you said. I think it's the number of children is younger. Have a more exposure to the disease because of the pollution things, but you need to be isolated other factors. How do you know this children's sickness coming from the air pollution? The age 1 and 2. There are many factors to get sick, right? In order to argue that one, we need to be excluded other factors. That's my answer also.
Yeah, thanks. Actually, what we said is that we don't know whether children is sick or not, actually. But people's concerns, if parents worry about that, there will be an impact. If people worry about the potential on their children's health, there will be an impact. No, it's not to be the actual impact of the air pollution. It's just that people's concerns will matter. So in that we don't have the actual illness data of the children, like they have a what kind of problem, but we actually don't need that because if parents have concern about that, there will be an impact, right? So we don't have the don't need to have the actual illness actually.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can go for another last question from Peter.
Thank you for the interesting presentation. I just would like to continue on with what Haisong was mentioning, because I've done some research looking at, sort of satisfaction with nuclear power plants in the neighborhood in Kazakhstan. And what we noticed is that there's an interaction between education level and number of kids and their perception of danger for nuclear power. So could that potentially be also so that educated parents, they have a, what would you say, or a better understanding of impacts of PM10 than uneducated parents. So the key thing is you've just done education level, but have you looked at an education level of parents separately?
That's a good point. It's like, you mean the heterogeneity analysis, right? Whether the impact can be different between the levels, right? Mm-hmm. Well, we didn't do that. We did that for income level and also other, but for education, frankly speaking, we haven't tried that.
Okay.
But that's a very good suggestion. I think it's worthwhile to take a look whether that matters. Yeah, that's a good point. We haven't done that actually. Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
See, I was just curious because we noticed it when we were looking at the nuclear power, nuclear issues
Because
in the community.
We didn't do that. Yeah.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I see Kai Hong as well. All right, let's go for another one. Kai Hong. Let's make it rigorous. Cannot hear you, Kai Hong. Okay. I think we lost him. Otherwise, Simon, is that you raise your hand or?
Yes, yeah. If possible, I can ask one more question if Kai
Yeah,
Hong.
Very rigorous and final one, yeah?
Okay. It's actually pretty general. Just from what I've heard, but I don't want to criticize your work or anything, but I heard, these subjective well-being scales and things like that maybe receive some criticism, I've heard, from the economic in general. Can you elaborate on this, or am I just making it up on my mind? Or
well, so I mean, there are a lot of measures, subject well-being measures, right? You want to know the what's going on there, right?
Yeah, because I think it's ordinal, and then you cannot really compare preferences between people and this kind of stuff, and it has to do with something like that. This is what.
Well, actually, this kind of criticism measures of sexual well-being has been have a long history. That's why since 1974, Richard Easterlin done his kind of pioneer work on that. And for about 20 years, nobody just follows, or very few follows that literature, because people just stick to our, a reviewed preference theory. And then we mainly rely on the income or other mature well-being indicators to measure our well-being. But clearly, we know that there are a lot of potential problems with those kind of objective well-being measures to capture people's welfare or well-being. That's why later, a lot of people turn back to this kind of subjective well-being measure. It's like, if they say they are happy, well, they are happy. You should not, based on your view or active view, to tell people whether they are happy or not. You cannot just observe people's income level or health level and tell people, okay, you're happy. No, they happy or not, they know it. You don't know. Probably you can partially observe it, but people know about them. So there are actually a lot of psychological studies trying to test the validity of such kind of measures, whether they do reveal the truths or true well-being. And actually, there are a lot of studies on this kind of area and trying to tell people that this kind of measure, of course, is not perfect. There are a lot of, but it does reveal a lot of information which cannot be reviewed by just looking at their income and health, because there are subjective well-being measures can reflect a lot of non-economic variables. For example, our social relations, marriage, or other non-economic variables can be reflected by these important subjective measures. We're not saying it's perfect. It's like review preference method is also not perfect measure of well-being, but additional important information. And so that's why we can use it as an additional measure to test and to tell being. And this kind of measure can also be used to tell the monetary values of some non-monetary goods, as I just explained. for noise, for many other stuff. Yeah.
Thank
Good.
you.
Yeah,
No,
usually.
I think.
yeah.
Sorry, Song.
No, because
we have to
Simon's,
close it here.
Usually on observation it's better to get the perceived perception measure. Observable things is better to the measurement. It's not good. That's what I want to say.
Okay. All right.
Depending on the observability. Okay. Depending on the observability.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Professor Wang. By the way, the draft of just to share with us, we just like for internal use, right?
Sure.
Yeah,
No problem.
because that's going for public. Yeah. Okay. So great. Thanks for having you with us. Further collaboration in the common. Yep.
Sure. Thanks a lot for these hot discussions. I really learned a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you, Shun.
Yeah.